Hey, what is up guys? This is Nishi from MST.TV, back with another Market Watch episode. So apparently those stimulus checks really have been hitting the Yu-Gi-Oh market hard, as we've seen a ton of different price jumps and spikes just a week after the ban list dropped. Now, even though the format is still extremely young, people are still looking to pick up whatever staples and important cards they can, with a lot of them assuming that once the format has had a chance to settle down, things could get even more expensive. So today we're breaking down some more of those price spikes that we've seen over the last few days, with the expectation that we'll be seeing more similar buyouts over the next couple of weeks. Let's get started. So to start things off, let's take a look at Zeus, which is definitely looking like one of the most important extra deck monsters in the game today, with an ability that could shape entire formats. We all know what this card is by now, an Xyz monster that you can throw down on top of any other Xyz monster as long as you battled with an Xyz this turn. It also allows you to detach 2 materials from it as a quick effect to send all other cards on the field to the graveyard, which is absolutely ridiculous. Now, for a while, this card was only about $50 to $60, but over the last couple of weeks we've seen this card steadily climb up in price, and it's now up at the $85 mark. You don't need to see the game from a bird's eye view to realize just how influential Zeus can be, as it's a key extra deck monster in meta-relevant decks like Zodiac and Virtual World. Now, interestingly enough, we didn't see too much from Zeus at the first LCS event of the new format, which was more heavily dominated by decks like Dragon Link, Dinosaurs, and Invoked, but without a doubt, I think that we are going to continue to see Zeus more and more. It's just such a meta warping card. I think that even in decks where you aren't making it every single game, you'll find a way to include it in your extra deck so that you have the option to go into it just in case, kind of like how Drytron found a way to make this card using the Assembled Nightingale and Downward Magician. Call me crazy, but I think that this card should definitely be rivaling Access Code Talker and Peak Appaloosa in terms of price, and should arguably be higher than the two because it's something that some strategies will even be running in multiples. Personally, I think that this card will jump over the $100 mark in about a month, so if you can grab this card at around $75 for now, I think that this is a solid card to grab while you can get it for relatively cheap. Just do be a little bit cautious and don't hold on to too many copies for too long, because it does fall within the range of cards to be reprinted in the 2021 Megatins. Next up, let's take a look at Crystron Halqifibrax. I'm not going to bother explaining what this card is or what it does. I feel like it's iconic enough, and we've seen enough banlist casualties from this card's existence in the game already. Fortunately, I feel like with the banning of Linkross and Olion, Halqifibrax is actually a pretty reasonable card in the game today, not doing anything that's too crazy or broken. Halqifibrax is a card that came out around this time last year, but for the most part it wasn't crazy expensive. It was only around $20 to $25. Now, however, we're actually starting to see the price of Halqifibrax go up a bit, and it's now sitting up at the $35 mark for the ultra rare. This is really weird because we actually had the ultimate rare version of this card released just recently, and it's currently at around the $110 mark, and that theoretically increases the supply of this card on the market, although admittedly not by much. However, we are seeing Halqifibrax's price higher now than it was back when Linkross was legal and it felt like everyone was playing combo decks in order to abuse it. Right now, I think it's really only Dragon Link that plays it. You don't run Halqifibrax in Virtual World, Eldritch, Zodiac, Dinos, or Invoked, so that is kind of interesting. I do think that we're going to see this card running around in the meta for quite some time, and even if it does get a reprint, it's such an iconic card that I would expect those reprints to be higher rarities or harder to pull printings. Now, although I could see it dipping a little bit back down to around the $30 mark as the market corrects itself slightly, Halqifibrax is the type of card that's always going to be in demand as long as it is legal, so I would expect it to stay pretty steady in terms of price. Don't expect Halqifibrax to come crashing down anytime soon. Alright guys, so this one is actually kind of hilarious. All rarities of Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring are now over the $20 mark. That's right, that includes the maximum gold printings, the guaranteed print that was in Dual Devastator, and even the common version from the Salamangreat structure deck, which is honestly absolutely ridiculous. I don't think we've seen a card get this many reprints, yet manage to stay at such a high price point. The closest thing I can think of is like Allure of Darkness, which is still a few bucks despite multiple common printings, but nothing that's so far into the double digits like this card is. Obviously, Ash Blossom is a staple hand trap in the game today, and has been ever since its release. It goes through short periods of time where it doesn't see too much play, but it always manages to end up making its way back into everyone's decks at 3. It does also have the benefit of being a relatively cute looking card. I think that the only thing that really surprises me at this point is that aside from the original secret rare printing, there's no really high rarity version of the card, I thought that for sure it would be printed as an ultimate rare, a ghost rare, a collector's rare, or a starlight rare, something like that by now, but maybe Konami is just saving that to really help push some other type of product down the road. Honestly, I thought that selling common Ash Blossoms at $10 was really good value for them. I didn't think they would continue their trend upward from there at all. I'm inclined to tell you guys that at the current market price of anywhere from $20 to $25 for all of these lower rarity versions of the card, you should be offloading all of your extra copies. But honestly, with how ridiculous this card's price has been so far, at this point I wouldn't be surprised if the commons hit something crazy like $30 a piece. So go ahead and do just whatever feels right for you guys. So next up is a pretty interesting one. Let's take a look at Invocation. So back at the LCS event from just over a week ago, we saw a surprising number of invoked decks in the top 16 at the event after being combined with various engines, including the Dogmatica, Shaddols, and Mech Knights. This was pretty surprising, especially since last format we didn't really see too much from the invoked engine at all, but I guess with the banning of True King of All Calamities, as well as nerfs to Drytron bringing Vanity's Ruler and Herald of Ultimateness a bit more out of the format, two really big obstacles to the invoked engine were removed from the game and are now allowing the invoked engine to thrive. Invocation is a card that has actually had multiple different printings, but oddly enough, all of them were short prints that are relatively difficult to find. The original secret rare was a short print from Fusion Enforcers, and there was also a short print secret rare reprint in Battles of Legend Armageddon. Both printings are actually up at around the $45 mark. There was an ultimate rare printing from OTS Tournament Pack 6, which is obviously really expensive. It's up at $170 a piece right now. And then even the super rares that we saw in Shadows in Valhalla, those are the lowest rarity printings available, but they're still a pain to actually pull. They were short printed as well, so those are about $40 a piece. All things considered, I do get it. The Invoked engine is a really strong, compact, and consistent engine, and I do really like the way that it works. And with such a powerful engine, of course a card that only has short prints available is going to be expensive. I know a lot of people, including myself, have thought in the past that the Invoked engine would be hit in some way at some point, but that just hasn't happened yet, so I don't know if it's something that will happen in the future, or if the engine is just going to get power crept out of the meta first. Either way, I'd expect that before that happens, we will see Invocation get a more accessible reprint for a lot of the player base that drags down the price and helps to move a certain future product. So if you aren't planning on playing the Invoked in your deck right now, Invocation is an archetype specific card that has a lot of potential to decline in price in the future, and I would look at moving your copies fairly soon. Next up is a pretty crazy one. We're going to take a look at Evil Heroes, Malicious Bane, and a Dusted Gold, each of which is actually right now up at the $200 mark. Now obviously these cards are very well known because they were so short printed back in Legendary Duelist's Immortal Destiny. These cards were actually back up at $100 to $120 for quite some time after the set's initial release, though recently they had fallen down to around the $80 to $100 mark. Now, however, with the craziness of the stimulus checks, we've seen each of these mostly bought out on TCG Player to some absolutely crazy price points. Of course, this is largely just because of how popular heroes are as one of the most loved archetypes in the entire game. With people receiving access to all of this free money, they instantly turn around and buy these expensive cards that they weren't able to purchase before. That being said, Team Samurai X1 also just recently posted a hero deck profile over on his channel, which was almost certainly a contributing factor here as well. Looking forward, we know that we should be expecting reprints of these cards from Immortal Destiny and Magical Hero in Legendary Duelist Season 3, though obviously we don't have any official confirmation of that set coming out yet. It should go without saying that reprints to a Dusted Gold and Malicious Bane will tear down the prices of these cards and make them much more affordable and accessible to the player base, and while you may have some people who only want to use the original prints of the card, for most people just having access to the card is going to be good enough. If you're still holding on to these cards for whatever reason, I do think that right now, after these buyouts, is a great time to go ahead and offload these cards because they aren't exactly meta relevant, and the stimulus checks were basically the only catalyst for the buyouts. You may as well offload them for these insane prices before the cards inevitably get reprinted. So really briefly here, I want to touch on Godarla, which is the wind insect kaiju monster. Now this one feels kind of random, but actually Godarla is starting to pick up some attention as a side deck card against Tri-Brigade strategies. A lot of different Tri-Brigade strategies are running the Barrier Statue of Stormwinds, a floodgate monster that allows you to only special summon wind monsters. the card can actually be pretty difficult to out, and it's not as simple as beating over the statue, since your opponent could be playing cards like Link Karibo or Double Dragon Lords to try to prevent the attack from going through. Godarla then is a necessary card to deal with the statue as a wind monster that you can still special summon, so you could tribute the statue for it and then proceed to actually be able to play the game. Now, this card does only have two different printings, and they are both rares. There's the original and then there's the Megaton reprint. Because of this, both versions of the card are actually up at $8 each, which is quite a bit for a rare. However, I would definitely consider digging up this card out of your bulk and then offloading all extra copies that you have. I'm definitely expecting this card to follow Gameciel, Dogoran, Jizukuru, and the other kaiju monsters and get a super rare reprint in an OTS tournament pack. So keep a set of Godarlas for yourself to use just in case you need them, but offload the rest before that reprint hits. Alright, next up, let's talk about Lightning Storm and Triple Tactics Talent. So these two cards I grouped together here because I kind of think of them as being priced similarly, and I believe that they will behave similarly on the secondary market as well. I would have put Forbidden Droplet in here, but that has a reprint coming up as an ultimate rare in the next OTS tournament pack. Anyways, Lightning Storm and Triple Tactics Talent, both incredibly strong cards that can potentially blow your opponent out and help win you the game single-handedly, with Lightning Storm clearing back row and Talents drawing you cards or stealing an opponent's monster. However, neither of them is necessary to play any deck. You can still play a meta deck without these cards, but if you want to do well at an event, you're probably going to need to have these cards in either your main or your side deck. Because of that, these are some of the most expensive modern cards that we have in the game right now, with Lightning Storm being about $130 a piece and Talents being $110. Initially, after the stimulus checks, we did see both of these at $130, but I guess Talent had a little bit of a falling out recently. With both of these cards, they were definitely more stimulus buyouts. I remember that Lightning Storm was actually trending down at around the $80 to $90 mark for quite a while, and Talents were about $95 to $100. Of course, at the LCS, we did see each of these cards played consistently in the top 16 deck list, and I don't think that anyone can deny just how good these cards are. But in each case, my warning for you guys is to look at the trade-off between how much you'll be able to actually use these cards now until they get reprinted versus how much they cost. These cards are both expected to be reprinted in the 2021 Megatons, if not earlier, and those probably aren't coming out for another 6 to 8 months. And if you guys are planning on playing a lot of remote duel locals and stuff like that, maybe some higher tier events, then maybe it is worth it for you to hang on to them and use. However, if you're not really planning on playing that much over the next few months, don't let the fact that you got that stimulus check get to you, and definitely consider looking at picking up more affordable staples that are going to hold on to value for longer. Even if you're playing locals, consider whether or not it's worth it to hold on to a set of Lightning Storms or have $400 worth of generic hand traps, staples, and engines that you can use to build up your collection with, or even looking forward at sealed product like Ghosts from the Past or the Megatons themselves that could be really profitable investments. I guess that what I am saying here is that even though these cards are amazing and you'll need them if you're planning on playing competitive Yu-Gi-Oh!, think a little bit about what competitive Yu-Gi-Oh! Actually means for you in the coming months and whether or not that's worth it. Alright guys, that is it for today's episode. I know the stimulus check buyouts were pretty insane, but just because the prices that we're seeing are going crazy, that doesn't mean that you guys need to go crazy too. We never want to buy into the hype or buy into these price spikes, because that just means you're buying high, and that probably also means that you're selling low later on down the road, which is never a great formula. Sometimes sitting on the sidelines and waiting for the market to cool off can be a great way to get into cards at much more affordable prices after waiting for just a little bit more time. Anyways guys, if you enjoyed today's Market Watch episode, make sure you hit that thumbs up button for me and let me know. Also make sure you leave a comment in the comment section down below. Let me know what you guys think about the cards that we talked about in today's video, what other stimulus check buyouts you guys are seeing around on the market, or other cards that you want me to cover in future Market Watch episodes as well. And if you haven't already, make sure you hit that subscribe button for all of the latest and greatest content from both Tombox and myself here on the channel. And until next time guys, don't forget to hold on to your MST.TV.